This started, I was at a convention in Duluth, Minnesota for several days in June, and came home. When I was at the convention, I had to walk to the convention center from my hotel. It was about 3 blocks, and I walked through a city park on a sidewalk. When I came home, about 7 days later, I developed a fever. And I thought that it was probably just the beginning of a cold or something like that, but it continued to get worse. And that was on a Wednesday when it started. The following Monday, I thought maybe I should have it checked out. So my primary provider was not available, so I went and saw another physician, and she thought that it was probably West Nile. So they tested me for West Nile and said they'd let me know the results, and I had been taking Tylenol and Advil alternating, and to continue doing that as there is no treatment for West Nile. The fever continued to rise, a lot of fatigue, just not feeling well at all, and chills. And by Wednesday of that week, they called and said, well, it's not West Nile. And I said, well, what is it? And they didn't know. And so I waited some more, hoping it would just resolve and be viral and be gone on its own. And it did not. So that Friday, I went back into a Vera clinic and saw another physician. And after doing extensive lab work and x-rays, chest x-rays, as they were looking for possibility of pneumonia, through my lab work, she realized that I had Ehrlichiosis. Ehrlichiosis is a bacterial infection that you get from the Lone Star tick. She initially asked me if I had traveled, and I would assume she meant outside the country, somewhere exotic, and it wasn't. It was to Duluth. And when I told her that, she was like, you have Ehrlichiosis. And I said, well, how do you know that? She said, your symptoms show it, and I read about it a week ago. I was the first case they'd ever seen at a Vera clinic, possibly the first case in South Dakota. And it is from the Lone Star tick, which is not in South Dakota yet, luckily, but probably will get here. And it is a tick the size of a head of a pin, and it gets on you and infects you and then gets off. You never even realize that it was there. And so it wasn't like I was looking for a tick to scrape off or anything like that. And so she put me on a special antibiotic, and in about 36 hours, the fever was gone, and I was basically better, except that I had been in bed for 10 days, and so it took me a while to kind of recoup after that episode. I feel very fortunate because this can be fatal.